Audio Jungle.
Okay, well, uh, it is draft time again, and I know that normally I am an NFL draft person, but this particular NBA draft, the NBA draft is fun anyways, but this one in particular, especially if you live in this part of the country, is insane. Because for the first time since James Harden, the Thunder have a pick in the top three, and it just wouldn't feel right to talk NBA draft without the presence of one Alex Roig here on the podcast. So, Alex, thank you so much. You're from the Topic Thunder podcast, and you've been covering the Thunder for years now. And on top of your other jobs, this is just for funsies sometimes, and you do get paid. But I mean, this is a nice little side hustle for you.
Yeah, of course. The podcast gig isn't paying I can't quit jobs, but hey,
Right.
man, it is what it is. I love doing this part of it. It's a labor of love.
Yeah, it's as somebody once said, yeah, there's certain things in life you enjoy doing and certain things you have to do. And I feel like sports media is one of those things that for a while I was like, I can't believe I get paid to do this. And I was like, oh, I see why a lot of people don't get paid very much to do this. Yeah, but we'll cut right to the chase because it feels like forever now. There have been three main guys targeted for that number one spot. And yet here we are, we're recording this just a few nights before the draft. This will probably go up 2.5 days before, a little over 48 hours before the NBA draft. And it doesn't really feel like there's still a number one consensus number one pick. Am I wrong there? Or have I just not been reading the tea leaves? Is there a consensus number one pick right now for Orlando to take?
Yeah, so there is not. And what's kind of funny is, so the consensus has been, Jabari Smith Jr. and Chet Holmgren kind of battling for that number one spot. But all of a sudden today, the Vegas odds for Paolo Banchero for number one pick, they've increased very significantly, as far as positively towards Banchero. So, I mean, like you said, man, there's three guys, and those three guys are kind of like the three guys we've heard most of the year. And so, there is no consensus at this moment. Many people are saying that Jabari Smith Jr. is a done deal to Orlando. But then we hear that, Chet Holmgren was over there for 2 days and had a very good visit, had a very good workout. And the collective brain trust of Orlando, a lot of them used to be with the Milwaukee Bucks. If you look at the history of who Milwaukee drafted during the time that John Hammond was there, Giannis, you had John Henson, very tall, very lanky. You had Thon Maker, you had Larry Sanders. And so when you look at that archetype of that body type of a player, it leans more toward Chet, and so wouldn't be surprising to me if Orlando comes out of the draft with Chet at number one.
One of these days, I'm going to figure out how to gracefully mute and unmute on Zoom. Tonight is not that night. Yeah, that's really interesting that you bring up the kind of archetype there because, yeah, that just shows that I don't fully pay attention to patterns sometimes because I do remember seeing, yeah, Larry Sanders. Oh, wow. A really lanky, agile shot blocker guy. Oh, wow, Thon Maker. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense now. And not to say that, it's almost kind of like when people are trying to figure out who they want to date. They may say, oh, I don't have a type. Other people can tell when you have a type. And that's really interesting that you bring up that might kind of trend towards Chet going number one. I really feel like, and you hate to even bring up some of the kind of the unsaid stuff, but I feel like forever there was a lot of, and not so much in NBA circles but more so on like social media and from just basketball fans, felt like there was some pushback on Chet, whether it was just his build or let's call a spade, tall lanky white dude who kind of runs awkward, maybe he can't play. Did that? I think that, obviously he can play at least a little bit. And, he is I hate using this term because people just love throwing this term around in the NBA now. He is a unicorn though, in that,
Yeah.
I mean, as somebody said, it's like if Poku figured it all out. And almost like, they're not the exact same player, but it's, a guy who can handle, a guy who's 7 foot, a guy who you hope at that, at that size is going to fill out. And, if he goes number one, what would, even if he does, regardless of who goes number one, what do you think is the best fit for the Thunder at 2? Because while they may not get their player that they so covet and desire, that's not a bad consolation prize to be able to pick the second best player in this draft.
No, not at all. I mean, so as far as best fit, here's where you start to kind of talk about fit versus like best player available. And usually that's something that's reserved for, picks 5 through 10, where the cream of the crop has kind of gone by. And so you're right here picking either best player available or you're picking for fit. But right now, starting at the second pick, you have that option of whether it's best fit versus BPA. And so for the Thunder, best fit is going to be Jabari Smith Jr. This is a 6'10" wing player that can shoot 40% from 3. He can defend, multiple positions on the perimeter. He could probably defend a 4 pretty handily, pretty readily in the NBA right now. Versus Chet, who is somebody that, honestly, when you look at a comp, you cannot come up with a comp for him in today's game. Like, you look at him and you almost have to comp him for each side of the floor. Mm-hmm. So on defense, he may be like a Marcus Camby, he may be almost like a Rudy Gobert type. And then on offense, he may be like a Porzingis, even a Kevin Durant. The thing with Holmgren is that he went to Gonzaga, and Gonzaga's offense ran through Drew Timme. It didn't run through Chet. And so the amount of tape and the amount of stuff that we saw from Chet Holmgren, we probably didn't even scratch the surface of everything that he can do. We've spoken, on our podcast, we've spoken to multiple draft guys, and they're like, look, whenever he's warming up, he does drills that are not for big men. He does drills that are for the KD types, the Giannis types. Those types of players are the drills that he's doing. He's not doing big man, back to the basket, hook left, hook right, whatever. No, he's doing these shooting drills, these face up, those types of drills. And so the problem with Chet is that, yes, his floor is extremely low, but his ceiling can be extremely high. And as we've seen with the NBA final, when you look at the NBA, when you have a player that you can't really put into a box and that player flourishes, those are the type of players that lead you to championships. So players like Steph Curry, that's a player that when he first came out, you didn't really know how to kind of gauge how good he was going to be. That's why he went 7th in that draft. He turns out to be, one of the 8 to 12 best players in the NBA. And so whenever you're looking at best player available in this draft and you get Chet, there is a possibility that Chet could be an archetype of a type of player that we will see a lot more in the future, but he'll be the first in that run.
That's so wild. It's like crazy to think of seeing something for the first time. It's like the first person that saw a car drive, to think that you can see because you look at some of the comparisons, you bring up the Kevin Durant, some of the comparisons that people had for KD when he was coming out of Texas, people didn't know what to do with him almost because it was like, this kid's like 6'10", but he shoots like he's Ray Allen almost. Like, it was so weird. And now any kid that can dribble and shoot that's 6'9" or above is being compared to Kevin Durant. And it's, you were talking about some of the people that you guys have had on your pod, and I was listening to some episodes recently. And by the way, guys, if you haven't checked out the Topic Thunder podcast, it's available on Spotify. They post episodes, every other day or every 3 days, I believe. And
twice a week.
Twice a week. Okay, there you go. And they had a draft roundtable recently. People from all other podcasts join them, from Chucking Darts, No Ceilings, people from Bleacher Report. You guys had tons of great guests, and I feel like we were all kind of I don't know, maybe it's just because of the name. I'm still got the dart image in my head after reading Chucking Darts, but we're all kind of throwing at the same spot. I feel like is we all kind of figure we know, you know, regardless of, you know, Banchero, Smith, or Holmgren. I mean, unless Presti pulls the Presti of Presti moves and just like, no, I know better than all of you. I don't think he's going to do that. But, you know, assuming they take one of those three, there's your big at number 2. At number 12, you have options. And prior to the lottery, back when we didn't know that the Thunder were going to be able to get any of these three guys, you know, it looked like they might get somebody like a Jaden Ivey or, you know, get a guard maybe at 5 or 6, wherever they were projected to be. And then at 12, maybe get somebody like a Mark Williams. Well, if you get your big at number 2, then the Mark Williams pick, if he's there, kind of feels redundant, does it not? And so it's like, you know, at 12, and again, I'm not saying you can never have too many bigs, but if in this day and age, if you get your big at 2, who are some of the guys that, you know, and I've looked at a lot of mock drafts today, who are some of the guys that you would target at number 12? Because, I mean, as much as we would love, and I say we because I've seen so many Thunder people talk about this, and I as an adopted Okie would love this for them. I just don't think Shaedon Sharpe is going to be there at 12. Personally, I will say, what do you think well, I guess first let's touch on this. What do you think the probability is that the Thunder take 12 and some of their other draft capital and trade up? Because I know that has been a hot topic.
I honestly think it's pretty high. I think it's more than 50%. Because eventually you are going to have to start putting some of that draft capital together, because you can't draft 17 players over the next 5 years, you know, on a roster that only holds 15 to 17. So you can't do that. So you eventually have to consolidate some of these picks into either one draft pick or into a player in the future, whether it's players that are already on the team, you know, something of that sort. And so, you know, in this draft, this is, you know, being number 12 is the perfect position to go ahead and say, hey, we'll throw in another first, or, you know, even 2 firsts, and, you know, let's move up to 7, let's move up to 8, around that range. And then the Shaedon Sharpe talk, you can actually make it a reality. Like, I don't think he's going to get up to 12. I think his, you know, even though he does have his very, like, his handler, and this whole process of him not playing over the past year and a half has been a little bit weird, and it'll really scare some GMs off. But if you are Sam Presti, you have 2 picks in the first round. I mean, in the lottery, you can take that swing, and you can go ahead and, you know, give up a couple first round picks, especially like first round picks that have a lot of protection on them, and then get down, you know, to about the 7-8 range and grab Sharpe and take a swing at him. You know, you never know. You never know if he turns out to be the better player in this draft. And so you have, you know, a couple really good players, a couple really good building blocks to move forward into the future.
Now, let's say they do stay at 12, and like, I'm kind of like you, I don't think they will, just personally, but let's say, you know, a trade falls through, or teams aren't willing to trade down. I was looking, I mean, I think you already kind of answered this question. I mean, you have presumably your ball handler of the future in Giddey, your scorer of the future, you know, kind of do-it-all guy of the future in SGA, despite there being, you know, talk about what to do with him once, you know, contract, or, you know, if he becomes a trade chip maybe down the line in the future or whatever, that who knows there. And then obviously at number 2, you presumably draft your big of the future. I mean, it would presumably, especially in this draft, be a wing to be, you know, your next pick at your, you know, your next first round pick. Do you really, I've seen a lot of mock drafts having guys that are, you know, 6'5" or under, you know, more guards, more scoring types like Johnny Davis and Malachi Branham taken. Do you think it kind of has to be wing or bust, or who are some guys that you would take a swing at if some of the best wings aren't available?
So kind of to counter what you said about bigs, the thing is, if you take Chet at this point in his career isn't necessarily a big per se. He's more of a small ball 5, full-time 4, until he fills out a little bit longer. And, filling out that type of body could take a couple years. And so if you want to go ahead and get an enforcer protector next to him, it makes a little bit of sense to go ahead and grab a big at that 12th pick, whether it's Jalen Duren out of Memphis or whether it's Mark Williams out of Duke. And so you can kind of have your front court of the future. We always talk about, you have to get a wing, you have to get a big. You can have your front court of the future right there and have them grow up with SGA, have them grow up with Giddey, Trey Mann, possibly Lou Dort, and then kind of flourish from that point on. So that is a possibility right there. But so if we do grab Chet with the second pick, I do believe that we do probably go kind of guard-oriented, wing-oriented with number 12. If we stay at 12, somebody like AJ Griffin out of Duke, who is a great shooter. He has his injury concerns and he has his defensive concerns as far as being a defender. But when you're picking at 12, you're swinging for a guy, but you're also looking to get somebody that could be a 7 to 10 year vet on your team,
right,
and grow with your team. And so AJ Griffin, Johnny Davis is another guy that you mentioned out of Wisconsin. Again, really good, just real solid player. He's a little bit shorter. He's at 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", but really greedy defender. Benedict Mathurin, if he happens to fall, I don't think that he will. I would love to take a swing at him. I think Benedict Mathurin, for some reason, people from Montreal just have that dog in them in the NBA. So, we have Lou Dort.
Yeah.
He's from Montreal. Chris Boucher out of Toronto. He's another one that's from Montreal that just has that dog in him. And like Benedict Mathurin is like another guy that I see that's a real good shooter, but he is just that type of guy that competes. He wants to compete. He wants to beat you. I don't know if you remember back to the TCU game in the tournament,
yes.
Arizona versus TCU. Amazing. So if you get that player right there, that'll take your team forward immensely. But I don't think he'll be there at 12. I definitely think that he'll be drafted. And then one more guy is Jeremy Sohan out of Baylor. So he's a guy. He's probably going to be a 4 in this league. Extremely great defender. He's going to be a guy that's going to be like a Draymond Green type, but he does have his question marks on the offensive end. I don't think he's Andre Robertson-ish, but I do think that he will, it will take time for him to build up that part of his game. But as a defender, he'll be able to defend from day one.
Golly, is it sad that I hadn't heard the name Andre Robertson in like 3 years? Or thought about it.
I don't think anybody in the NBA has.
Poor guy. Golly.
Poor guy, yeah.
You talking about?
I'm happy that he got that contract before he got hurt.
Yeah,
let's just put it that
kidding.
way.
I remember. I think it was like right before he got hurt again in 2018, the 2017-18 season, and going to a game with my then fiance, now wife, and going to the arena, and we're standing in line, and they have all the decorations and the murals of the players and stuff, and you see Andre Robertson, and I'm just like, oh, and my wife was like, what? And I was like, nothing, I'm just sad now. And I'm glad you brought up Jeremy Sohan, because I was going to bring up his name, because I think I looked at about 5 or 6 mock drafts today, and his name was, I think, the only one that was like connected to the Thunder in more than one mock at number 12. In terms of what to do at 12, there was a lot of kind of dissension in terms of where they might go. Usman Dieng, he's a real interesting guy. I know that Sam Presti, much like Donnie Nelson, not afraid of taking guys from overseas, clearly. And I remember watching Sohan play live I happened to be at the games in Fort Worth for the second round of the NCAA tournament when they played. It was North Carolina, right? Where they came back from that massive deficit, and Sohan was really impressive. And he just I mean, he stands out because of his hair, but also because he's just all over the place. And just you talk about lanky, and you bring up the defense. I mean, I don't know what his wingspan is. I'm sure Jay Billis will tell us on Thursday night, but he is, yeah, he's a lanky guy, and
Yeah, he'll be able to defend, I believe, 1 through 5. Like
I believe it. I absolutely believe it. And when you played that that North Carolina team, they had such good guards who were kind of smaller, but they also had big plugging guys down low. And another name that you brought up, and I know how you feel about him because I remember you tweeting about him, is Jalen Duren. And I owe you an apology because I believe it might have been you who during the tournament tweeted something along the lines of, "Oh, it's going to be so cool when the Thunder get Chet Holmgren and Jalen Duren." I was like,
Yeah.
"Come on, Roig! Like you're living in dreamland. You pipe dream loving son of a gun." And now I'm the son of a gun. You flipped the tables. No, it's an exciting time to be a Thunder fan because I think they're putting pieces in place. I also sometimes cringe when I see Thunder fans who I think are expecting the rebuild to go faster than it is. And I'm like, you guys forget that you guys lucked out on 3 generational players, 3 drafts in a row. Like, Thunder fans have never really known what it was like to have almost nothing, kind of have a not a bare cupboard, but because obviously SGA and
they don't know.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they came to town with one of the best scorers of all time already on the roster. So it's a difficult time, and I will tell you, as a Dallas Mavericks fan who grew up in the '90s and didn't even start watching NBA basketball other than the finals until I was like 11 years old. I think my one memory of the Mavericks in the '90s was going to a game at Reunion Arena with my dad. I don't even remember the score. I just remember that he fed me French fries and I bit his finger instead. That was the most exciting thing to happen in a Mavericks game in 1993. Like, I'm telling you, that was the most exciting thing for me as a Mavericks.
That was like pre-Jason Kidd, pre-Jimmy Jackson, pre-Jamal Mashburn.
Yeah, pre-Triple J Ranch. Yeah. The Mavericks, as it were. But Alex,
and Tony Braxton messed it all up.
I heard that was a myth. But you know what? It's fun to believe. It's a lot more fun to talk about. Alex, what will you be doing on draft night? Will you guys have a live stream or a podcast or anything?
Yeah, so we will be having a Spaces on Twitter during the draft, and then probably after pick 34, which is our the pick that we have in the second round. We'll be doing a podcast after that. So we will have a Twitter Spaces open. I'm probably going to be at one of my podcast mates' house, just kind of enjoying the draft, and he has a pool in the backyard and just have a little party back there. And then we'll go ahead and do the podcast, and then I'll probably end up at the Thunder practice facility for Sam Presti's post-draft press conference that usually happens every year.
Well, you heard the man. Go listen to their podcast. Check them out on Twitter. It's Alex Roig and the Topic Thunder podcast. Alex, thanks for doing this, man. I always enjoy talking Thunder basketball with you. And one last thing I was going to touch on NBA culture and all the like. I happened to watch last night the Netflix movie Hustle with Adam Sandler. Have you watched that yet?
I have not. I haven't yet, and I should have probably downloaded it on my phone so I could watch it on the plane when I was flying in and out.
I was like, you had,
But I've heard that I've heard that it's a great movie. I've heard that Anthony Edwards' performance is amazing.
I kind of dislike him now because he was such a jerk.
That's what I've heard. I've heard that he acted so well that there's no damn way that is not him in real life. Like,
he's got some dog in him. And,
definitely.
I will say, I know, and I'm not going to give away too many spoilers, but man, I will say, I know it's movie magic, and it's acting, and just because somebody can do something in a movie doesn't mean they do it all the time in real life. I like midway through that movie, I was like, have I been sleeping on Juancho Hernan Gomez? Is this guy like actually amazing at basketball? And I looked at his stats and I was like, No, not really.
But hey, but
He's
it's like they say. It's like they say the worst guy in the NBA will kill
Oh,
everybody at the YMCA.
100%.
Just
Yes,
demolish them.
100%. And that's what
Yeah.
gets me is when people. I heard a question on. I was happened to be visiting my family down in the Dallas Fort Worth area over the weekend, and my patron saint of winning, Dirk Nowitzki, had his birthday over the weekend, and one of the hosts was like, "Okay, you in your current shape against Dirk in his current shape, do you think you could score a bucket?" He goes, "Not a chance in hell." He goes, "Are you kidding? First of all, he's 7 foot. Second of all, I don't care how much ice cream and schnitzel that guy eats. He's going to be a better athlete than you will ever be." And
I mean, it's like hell. Like, we do some runs in Oklahoma City sometimes, and it's like, yeah, that guy, he plays a Division II. He doesn't play that much, and he's out here dunking on us and shooting 3-pointers. It's just like, that's a Division II player. Like, I can't even imagine an NBA player.
oh yeah. I've gotten to meet a few people, interview a few people here and there that played Division I basketball or played Division II basketball. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I would tell kids. That would be the advice I would tell kids. I cover obviously a lot of high school sports, and I'm never going to tell a kid not to chase their dreams. Everybody's got to have dreams to chase, but also be realistic in that one, and how was like the top 2% go on to college and top 1% go on to the next level. Yeah, it's to get there, you have to be A, very talented, and B, work your buns off. Anyways, now that I got us off on a tangent, I think it's about time for us to get going. But Alex, thank you so much for doing this, man. And we'll keep our eyes and ears on everything related to the draft and to the Thunder. And Thursday night is a moment of truth. And
yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you all for listening. And this is Spoken Freely. I'm Glen Brockenbush. We'll see you later.
Thunder up.
Audio Jungle.